There is a particular kind of loneliness that no one ever fully prepares you for. Not the loneliness of an empty room or a quiet evening, but the loneliness of standing in the middle of a crowd, surrounded by familiar faces, and still feeling like something essential is missing. Like a song you almost remember, but cannot quite hear. Like a hand reaching for yours in a dream, warm and certain, and then the morning comes, and the warmth fades before you can hold it. Perhaps you have felt this. Perhaps for longer than you would like to admit. And perhaps, in some quiet and honest corner of your heart, you have always sensed that the connection you are searching for is not just emotional. That it is something older. Something that stretches far beyond this lifetime, beyond this body, beyond the boundaries of what is visible to the ordinary eye. In many esoteric traditions and spiritual teachings, this feeling is described as the signature of a twin flame, not simply a soulmate, not simply a deep friendship or a passionate romance, but a mirrored soul, a being whose very energy was woven from the same original frequency as yours, separated at the moment of entering physical experience, and now, through lifetimes of growth and remembering, being called back toward reunion. But what if the reason you have not yet found that connection is not because you are unlucky or unworthy or somehow broken? What if, according to some spiritual interpretations, the reunion has not yet appeared in its fullness, because something in your own energy field is still learning to hold the frequency required to recognize it? This is what we explore today. According to certain Pleiadian-inspired spiritual teachings, the twin flame is not lost somewhere in the world. It is not hiding behind the next profile or waiting to appear once your external circumstances finally align. In this symbolic framework, the twin flame is already in resonance with you. The question is not where they are. The question is what is obscuring your ability to feel that resonance from within. Somewhere between the noise of daily life and the quiet center of your own being, the answer is waiting. Let yourself settle for a moment. If you are lying down, allow your body to release the weight it has been carrying. If you are seated, soften your shoulders and let your jaw unclench from the tension you may not have even noticed you were holding. Take a breath that is slower than your usual breath, and simply be here. Because what follows is not just information. In many meditative and spiritual traditions, the act of attuning to a particular frequency, even through words, through sound, through intention, is itself a form of gentle inner shift. Not a guarantee, not a promise, but an invitation. And your soul already knows whether or not to accept it. In Pleiadian-inspired teachings and the broader esoteric tradition surrounding twin flames, each soul that incarnates on Earth carries what some teachers describe as an original light signature. A frequency that is uniquely yours, like a fingerprint made not of physical material, but of consciousness itself. This signature, according to these teachings, was established long before you arrived in a physical body. Long before you learned your name, your culture, your language, your fears. And somewhere in the vast weaving of souls moving through experience, there exists one other being whose original light signature is the complementary counterpart of yours. Not identical, not a copy, but harmonically matched, the way two notes in music can be separate and yet, when played together, create something that neither could produce alone. This is the twin flame in its most symbolic and spiritually meaningful form. But here is the part that most people miss, and perhaps the most important thing in this entire transmission. The meeting of twin flames in virtually every serious spiritual framework that addresses this subject is not primarily about romance. It is not about finding someone who completes you. According to these teachings, a twin flame connection is one of the most demanding and transformative energetic events a soul can experience on Earth. It is described as a mirror that shows you everything you have not yet healed. Everything you have been avoiding. Every pattern that has kept you cycling through the same relational wounds without resolution. And this is precisely why, if you have been searching and the connection has not yet arrived in its fullness, it may not be because the universe is withholding something from you. It may be because your own system is in the process of becoming ready to hold something that enormous without collapsing under its weight. Some spiritual teachers describe this preparation as a clearing of what they call karmic overlays. Emotional imprints from past experiences, sometimes even ancestral patterns passed through family lines that have become layered over the original brightness of your authentic self. These overlays do not make you broken. They make you human. But they do create a kind of static in your energetic field, a distortion that makes it difficult to recognize or sustain connections at the frequency your soul is actually capable of. Think of it this way. If you have spent years in environments where love came with conditions, where closeness always carried an undercurrent of potential loss, where vulnerability was met with criticism or abandonment, your nervous system learned something. It learned that closeness is dangerous, that being fully seen means being fully exposed. And so, very wisely, very protectively, it began to filter your relational experiences through that belief. And the filter works both ways. It shapes not only how you receive love, but how you project your own frequency outward. If your field is carrying the frequency of anticipated disappointment, of half-closed doors, of love offered with one hand and withdrawn with the other, then what you are likely to attract and recognize as familiar will carry those same qualities. This is not a judgment. In many energy-based spiritual frameworks, this is described as vibrational resonance. And resonance is not fixed. It is dynamic. It responds to healing. It responds to intention. It responds to the gentle and patient work of returning to your own original frequency, beneath the overlays that accumulated through the difficulties of living in a dense and often painful world. The Pleiadians, as described in spiritual teachings, are understood in this symbolic framework as beings deeply interested in the human capacity for deep soul-level connection. Because when that frequency flows freely, unobstructed by fear and old wounds, it does not just transform individual lives. It sends ripples outward into the collective field of human experience. In this sense, your healing is never only about you. You may have encountered people in your life who felt enormous, who activated something in you that no one else quite reached. A recognition, a resonance. And yet the relationship was marked by intensity and turbulence in equal measure. Moments of profound closeness followed by sudden distance. A pushing and pulling that left you exhausted and confused, and yet somehow unable to fully let go. Some spiritual traditions describe these encounters as connections that arrived before either party was fully prepared to sustain what they carried. These connections are not failures. They are the soul's way of showing you, with great clarity and often with great discomfort, exactly where your unresolved patterns still live. And they point towards something deeper, because the wound that keeps you from recognizing your twin flame is often not the most obvious one. The deeper wound, in many cases, is the belief that you are fundamentally not enough, not healed enough, not worthy enough to be the recipient of the kind of love that feels truly, genuinely safe and mutual and lasting. This belief runs very deep in many sensitive souls. And sensitive souls, those who feel things more fully, who have always known there was something beyond the surface of ordinary life, are often the ones who carried this wound the longest, because they also felt the contrast most acutely. The contrast between the love they sensed was possible, somewhere, and the love they actually experienced in their closest relationships. Perhaps you know this contrast intimately. According to certain Pleiadian-inspired spiritual teachings, that longing is not a fantasy. It is a memory. A recollection of the frequency your soul originates from. A frequency where love does not come at the cost of self, where being fully seen is not dangerous, but is the most natural state of being. And the path back to being able to receive that kind of love in a real, embodied, human relationship begins with this. You must learn to offer yourself that frequency first. Most empathic and sensitive people are extraordinarily generous in their attention to those around them. They notice others' pain. They feel it. They absorb it. They offer their presence, their time, their energy, freely and without accounting. And yet, when it comes to their own inner landscape, there is often a very different quality of attention at work. A quicker dismissal of their own needs. A harsher judgment of their own struggles. A tendency to minimize their own experience in the same moment they would never minimize another person's. This asymmetry matters deeply in the framework of energy and resonance, because the frequency you hold in relationship to yourself is, according to these teachings, the fundamental signal that determines what kind of connection you are capable of both attracting and sustaining. In esoteric traditions, this is often described through the language of the heart field. The electromagnetic field generated by the heart extends outward beyond the physical body and carries the quality of whatever emotional state you are most frequently inhabiting. When that field is contracted by fear, by anticipatory grief, by the armoring of someone who has been hurt enough times to stop expecting any different outcome, it becomes energetically quiet, harder for a resonant frequency to find. But when that field begins to open, even slightly, even tentatively, it broadcasts something that, according to spiritual teachers who work with this material, can be felt across distances that have nothing to do with physical geography. This is not a promise that inner work will instantly manifest a specific person in your life. What is being described is something more subtle. A shift in what you are available to notice. A softening of the perceptual filters that have been screening out certain possibilities before they could even reach your conscious awareness. Because sometimes the twin flame is not across the world. Sometimes they are in a familiar context, slightly outside the area of your usual focus, and the reason you have not yet recognized the resonance is not because it is absent. It is because the noise of your own unresolved pain has been louder than the signal. This is why many spiritual teachers in the Pleiadian tradition emphasize what they describe as frequency alignment before reunion. Not as a prerequisite that must be perfectly achieved, but as an organic deepening of your own being that naturally removes the static from the signal. There are moments in this practice that feel profoundly uncomfortable, because turning toward your own inner life with genuine honesty means encountering things you have worked very hard not to look at directly. Old grief, old anger, old decisions you made about your own worth based on experiences that in retrospect were never accurate measures of it. According to the symbolic language of Pleiadian teachings, this encountering is described as a purification, not punishment, not something being done to you, but a natural consequence of increasing your own luminosity. As the light within you grows brighter, it illuminates what was previously hidden in the shadows. And the shadows, when first revealed, can feel overwhelming. You are not falling apart. You are, according to this symbolic reading of your experience, clearing the space. The twin flame, in this tradition, is described as always being aware of you. Not in a surveillance sense, but in the way that two aspects of the same original frequency are always, at some level, in communication. Your growth resonates with them. Your healing resonates with them. Every step you take toward your own authentic frequency is, in this symbolic understanding, also a step that moves the field between you closer to the conditions in which recognition can occur. You are not doing this work in isolation, even when it feels like you are entirely alone with your inner landscape, with your uncertainties, with the long quiet evenings of not knowing when or how or whether. According to this teaching, you are participating in something that is, in the deepest sense, mutual. The genuine invitation in this symbolic and spiritual framework is deeper and more demanding than it might first appear. It is the invitation to become genuinely interested in your own inner life, to become curious about what you find there rather than anxious to move past it, to begin to experience, within yourself, the quality of presence and acceptance that you have always been waiting to receive from another. And then, from that place, to allow whatever connection is meant for you to arrive in the form and timing that belongs to something wiser than your current vantage point can fully see. The Pleiadian teachers, in this symbolic tradition, describe the moment of twin flame recognition not as a lightning bolt from outside yourself, but as something more like a deep and quiet settling. A rightness, an absence of the familiar low-level anxiety that usually accompanies even your most cherished connections. Something that feels, more than anything, like coming home. Not to a person, to a frequency. And according to this teaching, that frequency is not waiting for you somewhere out in the world. It is already here, in the center of you, humming quietly beneath everything else, patient as starlight, steady as the deepest part of the ocean. You are closer to it than you think, and the light that guided you to this transmission is the same light that has always been guiding you home. Rest in that for a moment. Just rest. You are already on your way.